At 6:14 every morning, Keiko sets a glass of warm water on the kitchen counter of her apartment in Kyoto. Not coffee, not juice. Warm water with a squeeze of lemon and a pinch of sea salt. She drinks it before anything else. Before her phone, before the news, before a single decision the day will ask of her. She is 54 years old. Her waist measurement is the same as it was when she was 38. She has never counted a calorie in her life. She does not own gym shoes she uses for the gym. She has never been on a diet that lasted more than the 3 days it took her to realize she did not need it. And somewhere right now, in a kitchen nothing like Keiko's, someone is standing in front of an open refrigerator at 6:14 in the morning, tired, already behind, eating something they grabbed because it was fast, knowing they need to eat better, knowing they need to move more, carrying the particular weight of someone who has tried the right things and cannot understand why they are not working. What if the reason has nothing to do with trying hard enough?
What if the difference between that person and Keiko is not discipline, not genetics, not money, not time, but a set of 7 metabolic secrets that Japan has quietly practiced for generations, that the Western wellness industry has never once told you about, because none of them can be sold in a bottle. By the end of this video, you will know exactly what Keiko knows. And secret number 5, the one Keiko calls the one thing she would never give up, even if she gave up everything else, is the one that changes how your body processes food for the rest of the day, every single day, starting from the moment you wake up. Stay with me, because the last secret on this list is the one that ties every other one together, and the climax of what I am about to show you is not where most people expect it to be. Before the 7 secrets, one truth that changes how you hear everything that follows. Your metabolism is not broken. The word metabolism gets used as though it is a fixed setting, something you were born with, something that declines with age and cannot be recovered, something that determines whether you are the kind of person who gains weight easily or the kind who does not. Japan does not think about metabolism this way.
And Japanese science, specifically research conducted at Keio University in Tokyo and published in the journal Cell Metabolism, backs this up with data that is genuinely surprising.
The study tracked metabolic rate across 4 distinct life stages: childhood through middle age, midlife through later years. The finding that stunned researchers was not that metabolism slows with age. It is that metabolism remains remarkably stable from age 20 to age 60 in people whose daily habits work with the body's natural metabolic timing rather than against it. Read that again. From 20 to 60, stable, not declining. The metabolic slowdown most people experience in their 30s and 40s is not inevitable aging. It is the accumulated effect of daily habits that fight the body's natural rhythms rather than supporting them. Keiko is not metabolically exceptional. She simply never adopted the habits that slow it. 7 secrets, all of them free, all of them available tonight. Let us begin. Secret 1, the 6 a.m. water ritual, and the specific biological reason Keiko never skips it. At 6:14 every morning, before a single other thing, Keiko drinks 300 milliliters of warm water with lemon and sea salt. Not because she read about it in a magazine, because her mother did it, and her grandmother before that. And somewhere in that lineage, someone understood something that Dr. Andrew Huberman at Stanford would later explain in clinical terms. That the human body wakes from 7 or 8 hours of sleep in a quiet state of cellular dehydration, and the first thing most people do is introduce caffeine into that dehydrated state. Caffeine is a vasoconstrictor. It narrows blood vessels.
In a dehydrated body, this produces a cortisol spike that goes higher and stays elevated longer than it would in a hydrated one.
And elevated cortisol, specifically the morning cortisol awakening response, is the primary hormonal signal for abdominal fat storage. Keiko's glass of warm water is not a wellness ritual. It is a cortisol management decision made before breakfast. The lemon provides vitamin C. A study from the University of Alabama found that 500 milligrams of vitamin C significantly blunted cortisol spikes in subjects under stress. One lemon provides approximately that amount. The sea salt replaces sodium and magnesium lost overnight, magnesium specifically acting as the body's natural brake on the cortisol system. 3 ingredients, 1 glass, consumed at 6:14 every morning before the day begins. Tonight, place a glass beside your sink. Leave the lemon there. Set the salt where you will see it. Tomorrow, at whatever time your morning begins, before the coffee, before the phone, before anything, drink it. That is where your metabolism's day actually starts. Secret 2. Hara Hachi Bu, the single dietary principle Keiko has followed since she was a child. At dinner in Keiko's kitchen in Kyoto, she stops eating before she is full.
Not as a diet rule, not as calorie restriction, as something so embedded in her daily experience that she has not thought consciously about it in years. Hara Hachibu, a phrase from the Confucian practice observed in Okinawa, one of Japan's blue zones where people regularly live past 100, translates as eat to 80% full. Stop before the fullness signal arrives. Here is the biology that makes this not just a philosophy, but a metabolic intervention. Your brain receives the signal that your stomach is sufficiently fed approximately 20 minutes after enough food has arrived, not during eating, 20 minutes after. If you eat at the pace a fork held continuously allows, you can consume significantly more than your body needs before the signal arrives, every meal, every day, for years. A 2019 study published in the British Medical Journal followed 59,000 Japanese adults over 5 years and found that those who reported eating slowly and stopping before full had a significantly lower prevalence of obesity and metabolic syndrome than those who ate quickly or to fullness, independent of dietary content. Not what they ate, how they related to the meal. The 20-minute lag is not a design flaw in the human body. It evolved in an environment where food required effort to obtain. The body never anticipated a world where more than enough would be available in seconds. Hara Hachi Bu is the cultural override, the conscious practice that bridges the biological lag.
At your next meal, at the halfway point, put your utensil completely down. Take 3 breaths. Ask one question. Could I stop here and feel genuinely fine in 20 minutes? Most of the time, the answer is yes. Most of the time, you will continue, but the pause changes the relationship between you and the meal. And that change, practiced consistently, changes the body that follows. Secret 3. The Sanpo walk, and the specific neuroscience of why Keiko never takes it on a treadmill. Every morning at 7:15, after her water and her breakfast, Keiko walks from her apartment in Kyoto's Fushimi ward to the small shrine 2 streets away and back. The walk takes 18 minutes. She has taken it for 11 years. Not for exercise, not for steps counted on a phone, for something she has never had a clinical name for, but that a research team at Stanford in 2015 identified and named Optic flow. Optic flow is the visual phenomenon that occurs when you move through an environment and the surroundings slide past your peripheral vision. It is a sensory experience specific to forward motion through real space. It does not happen on a treadmill facing a wall. It does not happen on a stationary bike. It happens when you walk through a street where buildings pass your shoulders, through a path where trees slide past the corners of your vision, through any environment where the world is moving around your forward motion.
This specific visual pattern has a documented, measurable, calming effect on the amygdala, the brain's threat detection center, And an overactive amygdala is functionally a cortisol pump. It keeps the stress hormone elevated at a low, continuous level that is too mild to feel acutely, but significant enough to maintain the fat storage signal in the abdomen throughout the day. Keiko's 18-minute walk does not just burn a modest number of calories, it actively downregulates the cortisol system for the hours that follow. Every Japanese woman who has walked to a shrine or a station or a neighborhood store for a morning errand has been performing this neurological intervention without knowing it had a name. 18 minutes, outside, no phone in hand for the first 12 of them. Your eyes doing what they were built to do before screens existed. Tomorrow morning, after your warm water, take the walk, not to the gym, to the end of your street and back. Let the world move past you. That is the entire practice. Now stay with me, because we have covered how Keiko begins her day, but secrets 4 and 5 are where the metabolic science gets genuinely surprising. And secret 5 is the one she called the one thing she would never give.
Secret 4. The green tea window. Why Keiko drinks her first cup at 9:30 and not at 6:15. In Keiko's kitchen in Kyoto, the kettle goes on at 9:30, not at 6:15 with the warm water, not with breakfast, at 9:30. The timing is not arbitrary. It is the result of generations of Japanese practice, arriving at exactly the conclusion that modern chronobiology confirms. Green tea contains EGCG, epigallocatechin gallate, a catechin compound that acts as what Keiko's batter, who studied nutrition in Osaka, once described to her as a natural internal heater for the metabolism. EGCG raises resting metabolic rate modestly but consistently. It improves insulin sensitivity. It supports the liver's ability to process and clear excess fat from the bloodstream. A meta-analysis published in Obesity Reviews examined 11 studies on green tea and body composition. The consistent finding was that regular green tea consumption produced meaningful reductions in waist circumference, specifically attributing the effect to EGCG's interaction with the body's fat oxidation pathway during rest. But the window matters. Green tea contains a small amount of caffeine, not enough to produce a significant stimulant effect on its own, but enough to interact with the adenosine-clearing process that governs morning cortisol. Drinking green tea immediately upon waking has the same cortisol-amplifying effect as coffee.
Drinking it 90 minutes after waking, once the adenosine has naturally cleared and the cortisol awakening response has begun its natural decline, allows EGCG to work on a calm metabolic canvas rather than an agitated one. Keiko drinks her first cup of green tea at 9:30, not because she planned this precisely, because the morning ritual her grandmother passed to her produces the same biological result that the research would later confirm was optimal. Matcha works, sencha works, any quality loose-leaf green tea works. The time is the variable. 90 minutes after waking, every morning. Secret 5, the one Keiko would never give up. Ichigo Ichie, and the specific way it changes the metabolism of every meal. Keiko eats alone sometimes, with her husband sometimes, with her adult daughter on weekends, and in every one of those contexts, in every one of those meals, she is doing one thing that almost nobody she has ever met outside Japan does consistently. She is fully present for the meal. Phone face down, television off. No standing at the counter finishing something before she can sit. No eating while driving, while scrolling, while watching, while reading. The meal is the thing she is doing, the only thing, for the time it takes to eat it. Ichigo Ichie, the Japanese principle of one time, one meeting, treating each moment as unrepeatable, applied to eating produces something that the research community has been trying to explain for decades.
Mindful eating. The practice of full attentional presence during a meal has been studied in clinical settings since the early 2000s. The findings are consistent and significant.
A study from the University of New Mexico found that subjects who ate with full attentional presence consumed an average of 300 fewer calories per meal than a control group eating identically while distracted, without any instruction to eat less, without any restriction, without awareness of calorie content. 300 calories per meal from presence alone.
But here is the mechanism that most of the research misses and that Japanese practice has always understood intuitively. When you eat distracted, the brain's satiety signaling system is partially occupied by the competing stimulus. The food arrives in the stomach, but the fullness signal is delayed beyond the standard 20 minutes, because attention, which is required to register and process satiety signals, is divided. You eat past full, not because of appetite, but because your attention was elsewhere. Ichigo Ichie at mealtimes is not a wellness practice, it is a metabolic practice. Full presence during eating means the satiety signal arrives on time, is registered properly, and produces the stopping behavior the body was designed to produce. Keiko sits down. The phone stays face down. The meal is the meeting. That is the one thing she would never give up. Tonight at dinner, phone face down. Not across the room, face down on the table. Meal as the only thing happening, for however long it takes. Notice what changes and how the meal feels, and when you naturally stop. Secret 6. The fermented food daily practice, and what Keiko's gut microbiome is doing that most Western metabolisms never get the chance to do. Every day in Keiko's kitchen in Kyoto, at least one fermented food reaches the table. Not as a side project, not as a health supplement, as simply what is there. Miso, natto, tsukemono, the quick pickled vegetables that sit beside every Japanese meal.
A mazake on cold mornings. Pickled daikon in small portions alongside fish. Japan has been fermenting food for over 1,300 years, and what modern gut microbiome research has confirmed in the last decade is that this practice is one of the most powerful metabolic interventions a daily diet can contain. The gut microbiome, the ecosystem of bacteria living in your digestive tract, plays a direct and significant role in metabolism, fat storage, and hormonal regulation. Specific species of gut bacteria are responsible for producing short-chain fatty acids that signal the body to burn fat rather than store it. Other species regulate the production and clearance of estrogen, the hormone whose decline after menopause is directly associated with the shift from peripheral to abdominal fat storage. A study published in Cell in 2021 from researchers at Stanford Medical School compared two dietary interventions over 17 weeks. One group ate a high-fiber diet. The other ate a fermented food-rich diet. The fermented food group showed dramatically higher microbiome diversity, and with that diversity, measurably lower inflammatory markers, better insulin sensitivity, and improved metabolic function across almost every measured parameter.
Miso soup is not a side dish in Japanese culture. It is the daily delivery mechanism for the probiotic ecosystem that keeps the metabolism working the way it was designed to. One fermented food per day. Miso soup is the simplest entry point. 1 tablespoon of miso paste dissolved in warm water with a small piece of tofu and a strip of wakame seaweed takes 3 minutes to make. It has been made in Japanese kitchens every single morning for centuries, not as medicine, as breakfast. Make it tomorrow morning alongside the warm water. Let it become what it has always been in Keiko's kitchen, simply what is there. Secret 7. The final secret. The one that Keiko does not call a secret at all. the one she would be surprised to hear described as unusual. Every evening at 9:45, Keiko does something that most adults in the Western world stopped doing years ago and do not realize they stopped. She goes to bed. Not at midnight after another episode. Not at 11:30 after the phone finally leaves her hand. At 9:45. Lights low from 9. Phone charging in the kitchen from 8:30. The bedroom dark, cool, the window cracked open regardless of the season to keep the air moving. By 9:30. She sleeps 7 hours and 15 minutes. Every night. Without variation.
Here is what those 7 hours and 15 minutes of consistent circadian-aligned sleep are doing to Keiko's metabolism that nothing else on this list could achieve without them. Sleep is the primary window for growth hormone release. Growth hormone, produced in significant quantities only during deep sleep, is one of the body's primary fat-burning hormones. It mobilizes stored fat for energy use. It preserves lean muscle mass. It directly counteracts the fat-storing effects of cortisol, and it is released almost exclusively during the slow-wave deep sleep stages that occur in the first 3 hours of a consistent sleep window. Dr. Matthew Walker at the University of California, Berkeley, has published extensively on the metabolic consequences of sleep disruption. His research shows that even 1 week of sleeping 6 hours per night instead of 8 produces insulin resistance equivalent to pre-diabetic levels in otherwise healthy adults. 1 week, 6 hours versus 8, pre-diabetic insulin resistance, meaning the body's ability to manage blood sugar and prevent abdominal fat storage is dramatically impaired by sleep loss, even before any other variable changes. Keiko's body burns fat overnight because it has 7 uninterrupted hours in which growth hormone can do its work. Your body cannot do this in 6 fragmented hours, regardless of what you eat, how far you walk, or which supplements you take. At 9:45 every night, Keiko is doing more for her metabolism than any gym session or dietary restriction has ever done.
This week, move your phone charger to a room that is not your bedroom. Dim your lights 1 hour before you intend to sleep. Crack the window. Get into bed 30 minutes earlier than you did last night, and 30 minutes earlier again the following night, until the sleep window is where your body wants it. 7 secrets, all of them free. All of them practiced daily by Keiko in her apartment in Kyoto's Fushimi ward, without her ever calling them secrets, a system, or a method. Warm water with lemon and sea salt at whatever time your morning begins. Hara Hachibu, stop at 80% full and give the 20-minute signal time to arrive. An 18-minute walk through a real environment where the world passes your peripheral vision. Green tea at 90 minutes after waking, not at the moment of waking. Full presence at every meal. Phone face down, meal as the only thing happening. 1 fermented food daily, miso soup the simplest starting point. And bed at a consistent time with the phone in another room and the window cracked open. These are not Keiko's secrets. They are the daily architecture of a metabolism that was never asked to fight itself. Keiko's grandmother lived to 91 in that same ward of Kyoto. She ate the same foods. She walked the same streets.
She drank the same miso soup every morning for 60 years. She never owned a scale. She never counted a calorie. She never described herself as someone who ate well. She simply ate the way people eat in that kitchen, in that city, in that culture. And Keiko, standing at her counter at 6:14 every morning with her glass of warm water, is doing the same thing. Not as a method, not as a system, not as something she read about or was taught to do for her health, as simply what mornings look like in her kitchen. Before you go tonight, one question. Of these 7 secrets, which one does your morning, your body, or your evening most obviously need right now? Not the most interesting one, not the most ambitious one. The one that when you heard it produced that specific, quiet recognition, the feeling of something already true being said out loud for the first time. Leave it in the comments, 1 through 7. Tell me the number. And if you want to tell me why that one specifically, I will read every one.
And if this changed the way you understand your own metabolism tonight, not as something broken, not as something working against you, but as something that has been waiting for the right conditions to do what it was always designed to do, share it with one woman in your life who has been trying harder than she should have to. She may be 7 secrets away from a body that finally works with her. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next one.